All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Passover and Exemption from Judgment. Now, pretty much this lesson, this lesson here comes to the inspiration of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. By a couple of videos I was watching earlier, one of them being Elder Apostle Gabar's video that he did on the answering the question a brother asked him about the Passover. Then right after that I saw the video with the brothers from Des Moines, Passover mentality, so I decided to look into a few things, and as I was kind of digging around, through the Spirit, decided to do this lesson dealing with the Passover and exemption from judgment. And our Lord's will, this lesson will be edifying, and we could tie everything together so that it can, give the sense of the scriptures. Now, as we know, our brothers should know by now, that the Passover that we celebrate, we could read about it in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter. The whole 12th chapter gives you a blow by blow of the Passover. So we're going to read some of the precepts in here, or some of the verses in here, look up a couple of words and jump around a little bit and take it from there. All right, so we're going to start off with the first verse. This is the book of Exodus 12:1. It says, "And the Lord Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you." And why was the Lord telling this to Moses and Aaron? Because when they were in the land of Egypt, they were following pretty much the customs of Egypt. So in the Lord getting ready to deliver Israel from the hand of the Pharaoh, from the hand of the Egyptians, he was going to establish, us as a nation. And a part of our establishing as a nation is to what? To be able to keep our own calendar. So the Lord has given Moses the beginning stages, so to speak, of the calendar, and pretty much, event in process of time when the Lord delivered us out of Egypt. He brought Moses up to the mount and gave him laws, statutes, and commandments to give to us, and also showed him the mysteries, of times and different things that would take place, which some stuff he wrote about and other stuff he didn't, because it wasn't time for those things to be written. He showed him the beginning of times, showed him the middle of times, he showed him the ending of times, which he did with other prophets and kings and rulers. So the nation of Israel was about to be established as an independent nation outside of Egypt and the captivity of Egypt. So it says, "Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel." This is not dealing with any other nation. When you break the word congregation down, the word con is with, and Greg, the name Greg or Gregory, means flock. So congregation means with flock, literally. So the congregation, or the flock of the children of Israel, or the sons of Israel, saying, "In the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house." And pretty much, this lamb, the Most High was very particular in. You had to go to your flock on the 10th day before the Passover. You had to pick out a lamb that you had already been grooming, for this particular event, which is the Passover. It says, "And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your account for the lamb." See? So there was certain particular. So if you had a whole lamb that you had to sacrifice, but you know that your household was not big enough, you would get with your neighbor. Y'all would get this particular lamb, you know, and after you sacrifice it, put the blood on the, you know, on the doorpost, which you're going to read about, you know, you would divvy it up, you know, between you and and your neighbor, you know, after, you know, it was all cooked and everything. It says your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. So there had to be particulars. It had to be a lamb. It had to be of the first year. It had to be without blemish. It had to be a male. Now, when you go to these different stores to buy this lamb, you don't know if you're eating female lamb or male lamb. And right now, pretty much, we're in a rehearsal, you know. And this is why we have grace, you know. So, like it for a minute. All right. So it says you shall take it out from the sheep or from the goat. So you could actually have goat on the Passover also. Now I believe the brothers in Jamaica, it's hard for them to get lamb, so they do eat goat for Passover, if I'm not mistaken on that. You know, and pretty much there's nothing wrong with that, because that is a part of, you know, what the Lord said you could eat it from. It says, and you shall keep it unto the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So you will have to take this lamb and kill it. And they shall take of the blood and strike on the two side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses, of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And why did you have to do this? Because that blood of this lamb of the first year, of this male lamb of the first year, without blemish, without spot, that blood would be the exemption from judgment, you know, from the children of Israel. Because remember, at this time, the Lord delivered the whole nation from under the hand of the Egyptians. Today, when the Lord delivers Israel, he's only going to deliver the elect. He's not going to deliver the whole nation. So-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the Lord ain't going to deliver every last one of them out of modern-day Egypt. He's only going to deliver the elect. You know, it says, and they shall eat it. They shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. And the bitter herbs represent the bitter captivity that we were in, you know, during this time. And you gotta keep your mind. Yeah, the Passover is coming up soon, but really we don't really push the dates out there like that, because, you know, unless Elder Pastor tells me to put it up, I'll put it up. But we don't usually push the dates out like that, because, you know, you have them scoffers that talk all kind of shit. So the hell with them. So, but if you are a member of a camp, you know, or if you are one of those diligent, you know, brothers, sisters that come out to the camp or watch the videos, you know, the heads of the different camps should have the calendar, you know, and the date for the Passover coming up. You know, just you heads of camps that are out there that have the Passover, or they have the dates, you know, for the Passover. You know, if you know any other heads of camps out there, wherever they may be around the world, that are sincere brothers, you know, that are in good standing, you know, you could give them that calendar, you know, the heads of those camps. That way they can give out the dates to their members and the, you know, the rest of the brothers in the camp as the day comes, you know, because, you know, we've been kind of just holding off on that because of that. But like I said, unless the Elder Pastor, you know, says to put it out, you know, put the date out, then I'll put it out. Other than that, you know, you're gonna have to get with your camp leaders, and those of you that are not in camps, you know, you're gonna have to get with the camp in your state, you know, to find out when these dates are. All right, so let's read that again. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So you have to put yourself in this mind frame of what was going on back then. See, you know, Jake is looking at things like it is now. You know, everything is laid back. You know, you chilling. You know, you about to have a lamb dinner, because that's how they treat it. They treat it like a lamb dinner. and they'll have mac and cheese with it. They'll have some potato salad, and different other thing, collard green. The scriptures give you the ingredients of the Passover. But Jake wants to make a whole feast and festival of this thing, like it was such a glorious event as far as festivity wise. This wasn't a festive time. You got to remember, Jake was in hardcore bondage. They were about to get away from the Egyptians. It was a somber mood that night. That's what the Lord said. They shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with the bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs, and with the pertinence thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain unto the morning, and that which remaineth of it unto the morning you shall burn with fire. And thus shall you eat it. So this is the manner in which we're supposed to be eating the Passover. With your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall what? Eat it in haste. So we were supposed to eat this Passover in haste at that time, not sitting down. You got your forks and you got your knives and your plates and your cups of wine, and you sitting there, chit chatting, and you were supposed to eat it fast because of the mode or the ambiance, so to speak, for lack of better words, the condition that we found ourselves in back then. And when you look up this word haste, goes to the Hebrew word chapazawan, which is hurriedly, in haste, trepidation, hurried flight. Now the word trepidation means to be in fear. This I believe I had looked this up, but Salaka, just thinking out loud. Trepid, timid by nature or revealing timidity, timorous, little mouse, in a timorous tone, cast fearful glance at large dog. Let me just put in definition, see what else comes up. Yeah, that's all that's gonna come up. So let's go to all right, let's see. Timorous, fearful. I mean, it really doesn't say too much, but pretty much fearful. Because that night, you got to remember, it's a hasty flight. That's why it was unleavened bread. They didn't have time to really cook. So the unleavened bread was quicker to cook. And plus, they didn't have that leaven. That leaven represents wickedness. Okay, so let's go back. It says, and thus shall you eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Now, when we look up this word Passover, right, it's from the Hebrew word Pesach, right? And there's an actual root word which you're going to look into. But when we look at it, it says Passover, sacrifice of Passover, animal victim of the Passover, festival of the Passover. Here we have what? Pretermission, an example, exemption. Use only a pretermission, an example, exemption. Use only technically of the Jewish Passover, the festival, or the victim Passover offering. And pretty much that's what it boils down to. It boils down to an exemption. It says a sparing, immunity from penalty and calamity, because there was a decree that was given by the Most High Yahweh of what was to take place in this land. And that decree, which was the 10th plague, was the death of the firstborn. Now, the only way for you to be exempted from that was, first and foremost, you had to be an Israelite. And second of all, you had to partake in this Passover and take that blood of the lamb and sprinkle it on your doorpost and on the on the top and on the sides of your doorpost. And that would, when the angel of the Lord would come through there, they would look at it and keep going, because they said, nope, this is an exemption, that's exemption, this is exemption, that's exempted, boom, boom. Oh, there goes, no, there's no blood over here. Let's go up in there. And by the time Yahushua finished going throughout all of Egypt, there was one dead in every household among the Egyptians, which was their firstborn. There was a firstborn of children, and also of sons, and also of their animals. So there was a great slaughter that night. So it was a solemn, somber night. The scripture said, don't even come out your house. So why would you want to, if that was the mood back then, why would you want to try to set the Passover up as something that's so festive? Now they'll try to use scriptures where, what is it, Josiah, I believe it was, and they were feasting and they were happy, and then they were keeping the Passover. Yeah, that's because the Passover had not been in use for a while, and everything was rededicated, so to speak. So they were glad in that aspect. But the mood of the actual Passover was a somber mood. The Passover that Yahushua had was a somber mood. He was troubled in his mind, because he knew that was the night where he would have to begin the walk, so to speak, to the cross. Just like somebody being on death row, so to speak. They had to begin that walk. The day when the execution comes, they had to begin that walk. So Yahushua was walking that walk to his execution. So that this was all on his mind that whole night. That's why even afterwards, when he went with his disciples and took Peter, John, and James with him, he asked them to watch with him for an hour, and they couldn't even do that. The sleep was so heavy upon them that they actually passed out, and they couldn't help it. And Yahushua wanted them to watch with him because he was in bitterness. He was in the bitterness of his soul. His soul was heavy that day. But what I got out of that is that each one of us has to walk this walk on our own. Because at the end of the day, the scriptures say, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So at the end of the day, Peter and John and James couldn't go with Yahushua on the cross. They couldn't carry that burden with him, because that was his burden to carry. And that's why he told the disciples that if you don't carry your cross, you can't be my disciple. Because each one of us has a cross that they have to bear, have to carry. All right, let's see what else we got up in here. A sacrifice offered on account of the sparing of the people. What people? The Israelites. The Paschal lamb, of which it is said, let's see, the sacrifice. This is a sacrifice of sparing, properly of passing over, unto Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians. Let's see. The day of the Passover. So pretty much we get the point. It's an exemption. Now let's go from there to the root word Pesach, to Passover, spring over, to skip Passover. Pretty much. So when you skip something, meaning what? You're sparing that. But you couldn't receive that unless you had what? That blood of that lamb upon the doorpost. And right now, what we're going through is we're going through a Passover. And the ones that are of the elect will be exempted from judgment. Let's go to Exodus. Now we get an understanding of, not Exodus, of this exemption. Ezekiel 9, and then let's go to Revelation 7. So let's go to Ezekiel 9 and 4. It says, and the Lord said unto him, go to the midst of the city, to the midst of Jerusalem. What is the midst of Jerusalem? The people of the nation of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. This is why this truth is being taught, because this word that we're speaking now represents that blood. Matter of fact, before we read on, let's go real quick to the book of 1 John. Let's go to the book of 1 John chapter 5. And I'll start at 1 because it's a quick read. Whosoever believeth that Yahushua is born of the Most High. I'm sorry. Whosoever believeth that Yahushua is the anointed is born of the Most High. This is dealing with Israelites. And everyone that loveth him that begot, loveth him also that is begotten of him. By this we know that we love the children of the Most High, when we love the Most High and keep his commandments. For this is the love of the Most High, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. For whatsoever is born of the Most High overcometh the world. Why? Because there's going to be an exemption. And this is what the Passover was about. Now today when we keep the Passover, we're keeping it, like the Lord already delivered us, but we're keeping it because it was something to be decreed throughout every generation. Now when the Lord comes back, this Passover is going to take like a back seat, so to speak, to the new Passover, which is going to be the deliverance from Babylon the Great, America. It says, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith, because the scriptures say, receiving the end of our faith, even the salvation of our soul, or receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your soul. As Yahushua said, he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved, pretty much. So the end of our faith is what? Salvation. So how do we overcome the world? By our faith, the faith that was given to us. So this is why it's important to cultivate that faith, build up that personal relationship with Yahweh Bashem Yahushua and ourselves. It says, who is he that overcometh the world, but he that believeth that Yahushua is the Son of the Most High, right? And Yahushua said, he that believeth on me, as the scriptures have said. So people in these wacky-tacky Christians say they believe in the Messiah. They call his name Jesus and Christ, but they're thinking about that white image, that so-called white image. So that's not the Son of the Most High. You have to know the Son of the Most High. You have to know his name, his father's name, Yahweh, Yahushai, and what they look like. They don't look like no so-called white people. They're so-called black men. So you have to know this. All right. It says, this is he that came by water and blood. So he actually came physically in the flesh, but he actually came through the book. You see? It says, even Yahushai, not by water only, but by water and blood. So the same way that the lamb without blemish, without spot, was sacrificed, and the blood was put on the door, on the post of the doors, the same way that when Yahushai was crucified, that blood now symbolically is upon us, meaning that it's covering us, it's exempting us from this judgment that's coming. It says, and it is the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth. And what is the Spirit? This word. And that's why Yahushua said, I come in the volume of the book. So he is the word. Right? It says, for there are three that bear record in heaven. And this is all that this verse should read. It shouldn't have the Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit. It should just have, for there are three that bear record in heaven. Now let's go real quick to the NIV to show you that. This is 1 John 5:7. For there are three that testify. This is something called the Comma Johannium, which that was added later. And there are no records, Greek manuscripts, prior to the 14th century, that have anything else but this. For there are three that testify. Then what happened was the so-called church fathers, they back translated a copy of the Latin back into the Greek, and you can't copy from Latin into the Greek. It says the Spirit. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's go back. Let's read this way, and then we'll jump back to the other one. For there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit, and these three are one. And there are three that bear witness in earth, the Spirit, and the water, and the blood, and these three agree in one. So now let's go back to the NIV. For there are three that testify, the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and the three are in agreement. And that's what it should read. So the three that is speaking about the Spirit, which is this word, the water, which is this word, and the blood, which is this word, the blood of Yahushai. So these are the three that agree in one, and this is what it means when Yahweh Shai said that him and his Father are one, meaning that they're in agreement. When they said that the disciples became one with them, they were all in agreement. Okay, so this blood here, this water here, this is the exemption, and that's why we're reading in Ezekiel 9:4. And the Lord said unto me, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. So this word is being taught, and the ones that are part of the elect are being sealed with this very word, which is the water, which is the blood, to be exempted from things that are coming. Let's go to the word mark here. And this is why you got to look up your words, because you could go to this scripture and say, well, look, the mark in Ezekiel 9:4 and then the mark in Revelation 13 is the same thing. No, it's not. There's, first of all, it's two different languages, and second of all, they're two totally different meanings. Now, when you write it in English, it's still the same. You have the name mark. You have a mark that you can mark on the wall. You know, you have different types of marks. So you have to specify what that mark is. So when we look up the word mark, a mark, the word there, the Hebrew word there is thawah. Thawah. Desire, mark as a sign of exemption from judgment. So this blood of this lamb, the Passover, which was an exemption from the judgment that was to be brought upon Egypt, the same way that the blood of Yahushua, this word, is also an exemption from what's coming. Let's go real quick to James, the 1st chapter, and the 21st verse. It says, wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. Why? Because this is what's going to bring the exemption from judgment, this word. And it's just that simple. But not everybody's going to get it. Salvation is easy as far as what is required. What is required is just to believe. But we can't believe unless the Lord gives us the ability to believe. And that's the point, you know? And the exemption from judgment comes through the belief of this truth and the sealing of this truth, which is the word, which is the blood, which is that testament. You know? All right, so now that we read this, let's go back. Let's read this again. Ezekiel 9:4. And the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Why? Because there is a judgment coming. Now let's go to Revelation 7:1. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Now this wind represents destruction. Because there is a set time, a set day, a set hour, a set minute, second, where this place is going to be judged. Where the Lord is going to pull back his mercy. He's going to pull back the angels and allow all hell to be unleashed, you know, on this earth. So right now, the Lord is sealing the elect. That's why this destruction hasn't come yet. It says, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living power. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our power in their foreheads. And this is why now you see these prophecies starting to really pop like popcorn, because, you know, we're at the point now where the majority of these prophecies have already been fulfilled. And once all the prophecies are fulfilled, guess what? The end comes. You know? It says, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. And then with that, you know, when you go through here, you get all the tribes. And with that, in the 9th verse, you also have this great multitude, which are Israelites, that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, that also will be sealed for deliverance, because the deliverance is going to take place all throughout the earth, wherever Israel is at, which are a part of the elect. You see? So now, we read that. Now let's go back to Exodus 12:1. And thus shall you eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. This is that exemption. And now let's go from there to the book of Psalms 32:1. A psalm of David, my skill. Blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. And why? Because the blood of Yahushua is what's covering that now. Remember, there is a judgment coming. It says, blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth not iniquity, and in whose spirit is no guile. So let's look up this word imputeth. To impute. And that's why the Lord said that he will not at all acquit the wicked. They acquit themselves. They won't hold themselves guilty, but the Lord is not going to acquit them. So the word for impute or imputeth is chashab. It says to think, plan, esteem, calculate, invent, make a judgment, imagine, count. Let's see, divide, impute. To be computed, meaning to be reckoned, to be accounted, to have that in the records. You know? In other words, this person has to pay. This is their tab, and they have to pay. They can't get away without paying for this, unless the individual that gave out the loan says, you know what, this person doesn't have to pay. You know, I got them. So impute represents something, especially something undesirable, as being done, caused, or possessed by someone, attribute. So pretty much, blessed is the man upon whom the Lord does not impute or charge with iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no guile, because there is no man in the flesh that's righteous. The only one that was righteous was Yahushua, and that was it. There was no man that's on the earth that's righteous and that doesn't go off and doesn't commit iniquity. You know, so this exemption is only going to come to those that the Lord, that are part of the elect. Now let's go from there to the book of 1 Corinthians, the 11th chapter and the 32nd verse. It says, but when we are judged, we are chastened of the Lord, that we should not be condemned with the world, because the world is condemned. And when we get judged and we're chastised and we're going through the afflictions that we go through, what is that? That is a cleansing mechanism. So that when the Lord brings when he drops the bomb, so to speak, on the world, the elect won't be caught up in that. Why? Because they've already gone through the suffering, through the chastening, while everybody else is having a good time. You know? Now let's go from there to 1 Peter 4:1. It says, for as much then as Yahushua has suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind, because this is why the scriptures say that knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of thy times and strength of salvation. Because we're reading these scriptures, we're not reading them just to be reading them. We're reading them to apply what's written in them, and to get our minds geared for what's coming, and to get ourselves prepared. This truth, these words in this book, are like apparel. It's like clothing that we're putting on, being prepared to what? To meet our bridegroom, which is who? Yahushua. So we're taking on the words that are in this book and putting them on like you put a clothing on. You know, like you put attire on. You know, you have to have your the crown on your head. You know, your everything. You look at a bride. Who's the most decked out at a wedding? Is it not the bride? You got the gown and you got the little whatever on her head, tiara, whatever it's called. You know, she got the shoes and the the makeup and the necklaces and the jewelry. You know, the perfumes. She's all dolled up. So right now we're being dolled up for Yahushua with this truth. Matter of fact, before we read on, let's go real quick to 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, and the second verse. For I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Yahushua. So this is what's happening right now. We're being groomed. We're going through the rehearsal stages until the day of the wedding, which is called the marriage supper of the Lamb, which is this blood and this word is the exemption from these things. So going back to 1 Peter, for as much then as Yahushua has suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind, for he that has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. So the same way Yahushua suffered in the flesh and ceased from sin, same way if we suffer in the flesh, we will cease from sin, as we read in Psalms the 32nd chapter. All right, now let's go from there to, let's see, I got Isaiah. Let's see what this says. Isaiah, okay, 31 and 5. And this is going to be our deliverance. Isaiah 31 and 5. As birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. What does this mean? This means just like birds fly, this is how the Lord is going to defend us. And what is that? Those are the chariots. Let's go from there to the book of Psalms 68 and 13. Though you have lion among the pots, yet shall you be as the wings of a dove covered with silver, and her feathers with yellow gold. So we know that this is not talking about an actual dove covered, her feathers covered with silver, and her feathers with yellow gold. Because first of all, if you melt gold and silver on a dove, it's gonna die. It's gonna be too heavy to fly. So what does this represent? This represents the chariots that are gonna come in that fashion of gold and silver, precious stones. Let's go real quick to, I believe that's Exodus 20. Let me see, just bear with me while I find the verse. Right. This is Exodus 20 and 22. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, you have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. From what? From the chariots. It says, you shall not make with me golds of silver, neither shall you make unto you gods of gold. Why? Because of the magnificence and the fine silver and gold that these chariots were decked out in. So when they looked up, the Lord said, look, when you do this, don't be making no idols or anything like that of me, of gold or silver. See, so that's how the chariots appeared. And then even the Apostle Paul told the Athenians, I believe it was, he said, look, the power, the Godhead, is not made with man's hands, silver and gold or something along those lines. So when the chariots come, they're coming in great fashion. An elder Apostle Targus spoke on a vision that his wife had, dealing with how Jake was being beamed up into the chariots. And when she got into the chariots was decked. They were decked out. You can't even put it, like she said, you couldn't even put it into words that how decked out they were. Like you have that show called Pimp My Ride, where they'll take a rust bucket and they'll turn it into this badass whip. Well, that the best pimped out ride out there that you could find, the greatest person that has the greatest imagination to put something together to where you would think you're in a spacecraft, that doesn't compare to the magnificence, not even an inkling of the magnificence of the inside of these chariots and the outside of them. So this is why the Lord said, don't be making no gods of silver, of gold to me. So Psalm 68 and 13, this is talking about the chariots. Though you have lying among the pots, though we've been in this low condition, yet shall you be as the wings of the dove covered with silver, and her feathers with yellow gold. Why? Because the Lord is going to deliver us, and in delivering us, that's going to give the ultimate seal to these nations and to these 2/3 of these Jake, that look, we should have listened to these people. We should have listened to these men. They were right. And that's going to be the glory, the beginning of the glory of the men and the women of Israel, the Israel of the Most High. It says, when the Almighty scattered kings in it, it was white as snow and salmon. They also appear as white. They also appear like clouds. They appear white, or like a very bright white, which years ago, I was, driving school buses, and I'm driving off the highway, and I saw this object in the sky. It was white. It was like a round disc shape. It was white. But it was the white that it was like, I can't even explain it. It was so white. So I said, let me pull over so I could get a better look. And by the time I got to pull over, it was gone. So the chariots come in different forms, different fashions. In the book of Zechariah, it explains them like the crown, the crown of a king with different stones on it. At night it appears as fire because of the lights, and the daytime appears as a cloud. It says the hill of the Most High is as the hill of Bashan, and high hill as the hill of Bashan. Why leap ye high hills? This is the hill which the Most High desireth to dwell in. So the Lord ain't dealing with no other nation, just the nation of Israel. Yea, the Lord will dwell in it forever. The chariots of the Most High are 20,000. So let you know that this is dealing with the chariots. The chariots of the Most High are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them as in Sinai in the holy place. So there's many, many chariots. Thousands upon thousands of chariots. All throughout. And these are the vehicles of the heavens. And this is going to be the vehicle that the Lord is going to deliver the nation of Israel in. And according to the scriptures, we believe that the elect will be delivered into one gigantic chariot, as it states in the book of Revelation, the 11th chapter. All right, so let's see what else we got. So Isaiah 31:5, as birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also he will deliver it, and passing over he will preserve it. So the ones that will be pulled into the chariots are who? The ones that have that seal, that mark, that blood in their foreheads, in their mind. The same way that the angel of the Lord passed over the Israelites back then that had the blood on the doorposts. But this time, instead of being physically on the doorpost, it's spiritually in our minds, which represent what? This doctrine. Now let's go from there to the book of, Revelation 16 and 15. It says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. So this truth is that garment. And this is, the keeping of it in our minds is that garment, is that exemption. And the Lord is going to come through and say, okay, pick all of them up right there. Pick those up, them up. Nope, don't pick none of them up. Nope, none of those. Just the ones that have the seal. That's it. Now going back to Exodus. Oh, matter of fact, before I go there, let's go to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 24. It says, by faith Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of the Most High than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. You think these people here, these so-called pastors that are living it up, and these entertainers that are living it up, that so-called read the Bible, you think they're going to give that up? They're not going to give that up. That's why Yahweh Shai said that hardly shall a rich man enter into the kingdom of heaven, because they're not going to be willing to part with those riches. Esteeming the reproach of Yahweh Shai greater riches than the treasures in Egypt. For he, and back then those are actual treasures. It wasn't no paper dollars, no FRNs. This was actual treasures. Gold and gems and, and silver and all of that. For he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. See? And what is the recompense of the reward? That is the deliverance, the prize. It says, by faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king. For he endured as seeing him who is invisible. So he saw the Most High who is invisible. In other words, he believed that the Lord will deliver him out of this situation. Through faith he kept the Passover, see, and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. So let's read that again. Through faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. See? So that's what separated Israel and exempted them from the destruction, which was what? Was the blood of that lamb. And now we have the blood of the true lamb, which is who? Yahweh Shai. Let's go real quick before we check this out. Let's go to Revelation 5. And and 6. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb. This is Yahweh Shai, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of the Most High sent forth into all the earth. And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book, this is dealing with Yahweh Shai, and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain, and hast redeemed us, brought us back to the Most High by thy blood, out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation. So when Yahweh Shai comes back, he's coming to pass over, he's coming back again to destroy it. The slain of the Lord shall be many. Just like he destroyed the Egyptians back in Egypt. He's coming again to destroy the modern day Egyptians, which are the Edomites. And he's coming to deliver and exempt and pass over the sins of the Israelites that are a part of the elect, the Israel of the Most High. So going to Hebrews, we're going to look up the word Passover. And the word Passover is from the Greek Pascha, which means the Paschal sacrifice, the Paschal lamb. It says, an example, the lamb the Israelites were accustomed to slay and eat on the 14th day of the month of Nisan, the first month of their year, in memory of the day on which their fathers, preparing to depart from Egypt, were bidden by the Most High to slay and eat a lamb, and to sprinkle the doorposts with his blood, that the destroying angel, seeing the blood, might pass over their dwellings. Yahweh Shai crucified is likened to the slain Paschal lamb. So it's the same thing, because it's Yahweh Shai came back, was there 2,000 years ago, and he was there also before that, during the time of the Passover. And he's coming back to do the same thing this time, and to pass over the iniquities and the sins of the elect. All right, so now let's go back. So that was it on that. What else do we have? Now let's go to, before we read these last 2 precepts, let's go back to here. Let's see what else we got here. Exodus 12:11. And let me just pull up these other 2 precepts that way. Let's see. 5. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay. So Exodus 12:11, and thus shall you eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord, meaning their rulers. And there was a great cry in Egypt after the slaying of their firstborn, because there was not one house among the Egyptians where there was not one dead. And the blood shall be to you for a token, upon the houses where you are. So this blood today is symbolic of Yahweh Shai's blood through the words of this book, which is the exemption from the judgment. It says, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. This time the plague is what? Those missiles. That plague shall not come nigh thy dwelling, in the book of Psalms, the 91st chapter. That's another one you can go into too. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. And this is why we still keep it to this day, because it's commanded us. All right, it says 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, even the first day. You know what, I'm going to skip over a little bit of this. You brothers can read the rest of this. You should read the whole book of Exodus 12. I'll start at 20. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitation shall you eat unleavened bread. And that's another thing. You if you have any type of leaven in your house, you got to get rid of that leaven. You don't have to throw it away. Keep it in your car or keep it in, somewhere else. Just don't keep it in your house for those 7 days. It says, Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, Draw out and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, which hyssop is a cleaning agent, cleaning herb, and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of the house until the morning. So if somebody was to go out of their house at night, you're done. You're finished. You would have got slain, because that was the sanctuary. Now, what is the sanctuary now? Let's go from there to Isaiah. This truth is the sanctuary. And eventually, Isaiah 26 and 20. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut the doors about thee. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. See? So once the indignation be overpast, the only place to really be safe at is in them chariots. I mean, there's going to be certain parts of the earth that's not going to be touched, but the safest place is going to be in the chariots. So going back to Exodus, and none of you shall go out at the doors of his house until the morning. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel, see, and on the 2 side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto you, unto your houses, to smite you. See, because that was what Yahushua was doing. He was coming through there and destroying anyone that didn't have that blood, their firstborn. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when you become to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he hath promised, that you shall keep this service. And that's why we still keep it. And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, What mean ye by this service? Then you shall say, It is a sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed their head and worshipped. And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. So now let's go to the last 2 precepts, 1 Corinthians 5 and 6. Your glorying is not good, know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as you are unleavened. For even Yahushua, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. So now we have the blood of Yahushua, which comes through what? Through the volume of the book. Because he actually made that sacrifice 2,000 years ago, but the seal of that comes through what? Through the book. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, because this is where it's at, this truth. The last precept I have is Matthew 26 and 13. Let's start there. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this woman have done be told for a memorial of her. And this is why every Passover, when we do this service, we actually mention Mary Magdalene and the great sacrifice, or the great thing that she did for the Lord. All right, now jumping down to the 26th verse. And as they were eating, Yahushua took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to the disciples and said, Take, eat, this is my body. See, so this the body of Yahushua, which was a representation of that bread, is also this truth. That's why he said you have to eat my body and drink my blood to receive everlasting life. And they didn't understand that he meant partaking of this truth. And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament. So the wine represented the blood of Yahushua. You know, that was also a part of the word, because through the blood of Yahushua is where we got that redemption. Zechariah chapter 9. Verse 11, as for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein is no water. All right. So it says, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. So that's going to be a glorious thing. You know, so the name of this one has been, you know, the Passover and exemption from judgment. So you can see the parallels between the old Passover and what took place during the Passover, and how the Lord passed over our forefathers when they had the blood of the lamb on the doorposts, you know, the same way that he's going to do it in this time. But this time the blood, which is the blood of Yahushua, is a representation of the exemption that is going to be put upon the elect of the nation of Israel. So with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified. Until the next time, I say Shalom. So going back to Exodus, and none of you shall go out at the doors of his house until the morning. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel, and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto you, unto your houses, to smite you. See, because that was what Yahushua was doing. He was coming through there and destroying anyone